There is a poem written deep within every soul. A rhythm, a heartbeat, a truth waiting to be spoken. Some live their whole lives without ever reading their own lines. But you, my friend, you were not meant to be silent ink. You were born to be spoken, sung, and celebrated. Becoming the poem you were born to be is not a simple act. It is a calling. To stand tall when the world bends your pages. To keep your rhyme when life forgets your melody. To rise from erasures and still declare, I am here. You see, the poem of you is not made of perfection. It is made of scars that have learned how to shine. It is the laughter that breaks through grief, the courage that walks barefoot through doubt. Your verses are written in struggle and triumph alike, and that, beloved, is what makes them sacred. Do not compare your stanza to another's song. Each of us was born with a different meter, a different reason to rise. Your purpose may whisper instead of roar, but its echo can still move mountains. So when you wake tomorrow, stand before your mirror and speak your truth aloud. Let the world hear your rhythm. Let the sky read your name in light. Because you are not merely living, you are composing eternity. Be the poem that does not fade. Be the verse that remembers. Be the line that love underlines again and again. Become the poem you were born to be. There is a poem that lives inside every human being, unseen, unwritten, but ever present. It is not crafted by hand or ink, nor shaped by teachers or time. It is older than our first breath and stronger than our last doubt. This poem is the soul's signature, composed long before we learned how to speak. It hums quietly beneath the noise of daily life, waiting for us to pause long enough to listen. It is the rhythm of who we truly are, the raw, unedited truth beneath our roles, our titles, and the expectations that cling to us. Every heartbeat is a syllable, every breath a stanza. And though we often forget its presence, the poem never stops being written within us. From the moment we are born, that inner poem begins to take form, not in words, but in wonder. A child's laughter, their curiosity, their fearless reaching toward the unknown. These are the first lines of a life's verse. In those early moments, before the world teaches us how to fear, we live our poetry without hesitation. We sing before we understand melody, we dance before we know rhythm, and we dream before we recognize limits. But as we grow, the world grows louder. Expectations crowd the page. We are told to conform, to measure ourselves by rules that were not written for our hearts. Slowly, some of us begin to forget the sound of our own inner music. We trade authenticity for acceptance, and in doing so, the poem becomes faint, not gone, but hidden beneath layers of survival. Yet, even when buried, the poem endures. It stirs in moments of stillness, in a sunrise that feels like a promise, in a song that makes us weep without reason, in the quiet ache of knowing there is something more we were meant to live. That stirring is not random, it is remembrance. It is the soul whispering, "You have forgotten your lines, but I have not." The poem calls to us through intuition and longing, through restlessness and inspiration. It reminds us that our existence was never meant to be a repetition of someone else's verse. We are each meant to write something original with our lives, something that cannot be duplicated. Even if the world tries to echo it, to rediscover that poem is to return home to ourselves. This inner poem is made of rhythm, and that rhythm is purpose. Purpose is not a career or an achievement. It is a vibration, a pulse that moves through everything we do when we are aligned with our truth. It is the reason one person heals through words while another heals through silence. It is why one builds bridges and another paints skies. The poem inside you knows what you were designed to create, not necessarily for applause or recognition, but for meaning. And when we live according to that rhythm, life begins to make a quiet kind of sense. Even in hardship, even in confusion, there is a current beneath the surface guiding us toward where we are meant to be. Living your poem is not about perfection. It is about resonance. It is the art of aligning your outer life with your inner music. Every culture, every generation, every faith has spoken of this truth in its own language. Some call it destiny, others calling others soul. But at its essence, it is the same thing. The belief that we are not random, that we are each carrying a verse that the world needs to hear. The tragedy is not in failing to become someone great, but in never realizing that greatness was already within us, waiting to be spoken. Too often, we look outside ourselves for validation, hoping someone will tell us who we are. But the poem cannot be dictated by another's voice. It is written in the ink of experience, loss, love, and persistence. Only you can interpret it, only you can live it out loud. To become aware of your inner poem is to awaken to the sacredness of being alive. It is to realize that your existence itself is a work of art, dynamic, imperfect, evolving. The poem changes as you change, it deepens as you grow. Every mistake becomes a metaphor. Every heartbreak becomes a refrain. Every act of kindness adds a new line of light. And when you begin to see yourself this way, not as a series of failures or successes, but as a living composition, you start to honor the journey instead of just the destination. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, love differently. You begin to live as if you were meant to, with intention, with courage, with melody. For in truth, you were never merely born to exist, you were born to express. You were born to become the poem that only you could ever be. Becoming your poem is a journey of courage, embracing your authentic self even when the world tries to rewrite you. To become your poem is to make a sacred decision, to live your truth, not just speak it. It is to rise each morning and choose authenticity, even when imitation feels safer. Courage, in this sense, is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to face it. It is the quiet defiance of standing in your own light when the world tries to dim it. Becoming your poem means peeling away the layers of expectation that have been written over your story. The ones that tell you what success should look like, how you should love, or who you should be. It means taking the pen back from the hands of others and reclaiming the authorship of your own soul. Every person who dares to live truthfully becomes a rebel against the script that was handed to them, and that rebellion, though gentle, is revolutionary. Courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is a whisper that says, "I will not shrink." Sometimes it is a decision made in solitude, to speak, to stay, or to walk away. The world often rewards conformity because conformity keeps things predictable. It makes people comfortable. But a poem that conforms loses its beauty. It becomes prose, stripped of rhythm and soul. The same is true for a human being. When you hide the parts of yourself that make you different, you silence the music that was meant to move others. Courage asks that you bring your entire self to the page. The messy, the uncertain, the misunderstood. It asks that you love yourself enough to be unedited. That is not easy work, for the world is quick to critique what it cannot categorize. But your poem was not meant to fit neatly into a box. It was meant to break the edges of every box ever built to contain it. Each act of courage is a verse added to your becoming. It begins with small choices. The courage to speak your opinion, to pursue your passion, to wear what feels right, to forgive when bitterness is easier. Over time, these small acts accumulate like drops of ink, slowly revealing the masterpiece that is your life. Courage grows not in the absence of failure, but through it. Every time you stumble and rise again, your poem expands. Every time you face rejection and still reach out in love, your rhythm strengthens. The world may never understand the cost of your authenticity, but you will feel its worth deep in your chest, because there is a freedom that only those who live truthfully can know. The freedom of no longer needing to be anyone else. Still, the path toward authenticity is rarely straight. There will be seasons of doubt when you question whether your voice matters, whether your poem is too strange, too quiet, too different. There will be moments when fear disguises itself as practicality, telling you to play small, to blend in. But courage is not born in comfort. It is born in uncertainty. It grows when you stand trembling and still choose to show up as yourself. Even the strongest souls have known this trembling. Even the brightest lights have flickered before they found their glow. The journey of becoming your poem is not about never falling. It is about refusing to stay erased. It is the choice to rise again, ink-stained but unbroken. Courage also means embracing your vulnerability. For too long, we have been taught that strength is the absence of weakness, when in truth, it is the embrace of it. To share your story, to reveal your wounds, to let others see your imperfections. That is the highest form of bravery. When you dare to be open, you give permission for others to do the same. Vulnerability transforms isolation into connection. It bridges hearts that have forgotten how to speak honestly. Your poem becomes not just yours, but a light for others still searching for their own. And that is the quiet miracle of courage. It multiplies. The moment one person lives authentically, they ignite courage in another, and the world begins little by little to change. To walk this path is to understand that becoming your poem is not a single act, but a lifelong unfolding. It is the daily commitment to meet yourself where you are, to accept your unfinished lines, to forgive your crossed-out verses, to celebrate your revisions. Life will test your courage again and again. It will ask whether you are willing to keep writing, even when the ink runs thin. But every test is a chance to reaffirm your truth. Each challenge, each heartbreak, each moment of uncertainty presses you closer to the essence of who you are. Courage does not promise ease, it promises authenticity. And when you live with that kind of courage, you no longer chase meaning. You become it. You become the living, breathing poem that the universe dreamed into being the moment you were born. Imperfection is beauty. Your scars, struggles, and resilience form the most powerful lines of your life. To understand the beauty of imperfection is to understand the heart of what it means to be human. We are born believing that we must be flawless to be worthy, that smooth skin, perfect plans, and unbroken dreams are the measure of a good life. But perfection is an illusion, a polished mask that hides the truth of our becoming. The most powerful art has always carried the marks of the artist's struggle. The brushstrokes that tremble, the notes that quiver, the words that almost don't make sense until they do. In the same way, the most powerful lives are the ones that have cracked and healed, the ones that have dared to fall and rise again. Perfection is a closed story, finished and still. But imperfection breathes. It moves, it grows, it transforms. It is where grace lives. Your scars are not shame, they are symbols of endurance. Every wound you have survived carries a language of its own, a silent poem written on the skin of your soul. You may not always be proud of how you got them, but they tell the truth about who you are, a person who has faced storms and lived to speak of rain. There is a quiet, unshakable power in that. When you stop hiding your scars, you stop hiding your story. And when you show them not as trophies, but as testaments, you remind others that survival is beautiful. The world does not need more people pretending to be untouched by pain. It needs more people who have learned how to turn pain into purpose. Every scar is a stanza in your poem, proof that you have been broken and yet refuse to stay undone. Struggle is the ink that gives your life its depth. Without it, your story would be one-dimensional, your melody incomplete. It is in the moments of hardship that we discover the strength we never knew existed. You do not find courage when everything is easy. You find it when your knees are trembling, and you move forward anyway. You do not learn compassion from perfection. You learn it from heartbreak, from loss, from watching your own dreams shatter, and then helping someone else rebuild theirs. Struggle softens the edges of our pride and sharpens the edges of our empathy. It teaches us to listen, to understand, to see beyond ourselves. In every challenge, there is an invitation, not to suffer, but to awaken, to become more fully alive. Resilience is the rhythm that carries your poem forward when the music falters. It is not about never breaking down. It is about rebuilding yourself again and again, stronger each time. The world may see your resilience as strength, but it is more than that. It is faith. It is the quiet belief that no matter how many times you are erased, you can still rewrite yourself. It is the soft voice inside that whispers, "This is not where your story ends." Resilience is born in the dark, in sleepless nights, in silent prayers, in moments when hope feels far away. Yet somehow, even then, something inside you keeps beating, keeps reaching, keeps creating. That is the miracle of being human. The ability to rise from your own ashes, not as who you were, but as who you were always meant to become. To embrace imperfection is to live without apology. It is to stop waiting until everything is right before you begin to love your life. Too many people postpone joy until the day they feel enough. But the truth is, you will never reach enough by chasing it. You reach it by accepting that you already are. When you can look at your reflection and see beauty in the parts you once hid, you begin to live freely. You stop seeking validation and start giving gratitude. You stop competing and start connecting. Perfection isolates, imperfection unites. It reminds us that we are all still learning, still mending, still writing. And in that shared imperfection, we find belonging. The lines of your life, the ones written in joy, in pain, in resilience, are not random. They are a pattern, a rhythm, a design uniquely yours. When you step back far enough, what once looked like chaos begins to reveal its meaning. Every mistake becomes a metaphor. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every scar becomes a signature. The poem of you was never meant to be spotless. It was meant to be honest. And honesty is the truest form of beauty. The cracks in your story let the light in. And when you let that light shine through, you illuminate not only your own path, but the paths of those walking beside you. For it is through your imperfections that others find permission to be real, and through your resilience that they find reason to hope. Comparison silences creation. Your verse is yours alone. Honor its distinct voice and rhythm. There is a quiet tragedy in the way we measure ourselves against one another. From the moment we are aware of the world, we are taught to compare, to ask who runs faster, who speaks better, who shines brighter. We learn early that worth can be weighed, and that value can be ranked. But in this race to belong, we begin to lose the rhythm of our own song. Comparison is a thief that sneaks in under the guise of ambition. It whispers that your poem is not enough, that your melody should sound more like someone else's tune. It convinces you that your pace is too slow, your story too strange, your dream too impossible. And slowly, without even realizing it, you start to rewrite yourself in someone else's language. Yet no masterpiece was ever created by imitation. The world does not need another echo. It needs your original voice. Every soul carries a rhythm that cannot be replicated. You were born with a cadence, a heartbeat that moves to a pattern entirely your own. The way you think, feel, love, and express are all part of a unique design that no other being shares. When you compare yourself to others, you step out of that rhythm. You begin to dance to a song that was never meant for you, and in doing so, you lose the grace that comes from being authentic. The oak tree does not envy the rose, nor does the river resent the mountain. Each fulfills its own purpose by simply existing as it was meant to. The same truth belongs to you. Your path will not look like another's, and it is not meant to. The poem you are writing with your life is singular, not better or worse, but distinct. And when you finally accept that, peace begins to take the place of envy. Comparison is not only a distraction, it is a distortion. It warps your vision until all you can see are fragments of what you lack. You start to measure your beginnings against someone else's middle, your progress against another's performance. But what you cannot see are the chapters they never show, the nights they questioned themselves, the failures they hid, the doubts that shaped them. You are comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. And in doing so, you diminish the quiet victories of your own journey. Your growth may not be visible to others, but it is real. The smallest step forward still carries the weight of courage. The slowest progress still counts as movement. The beauty of your becoming cannot be measured by the standards of another life. When you free yourself from comparison, you rediscover the joy of creation. You begin to write, speak, build, and dream not for approval, but for expression. You begin to remember that the act of creating, of living your truth, is sacred in itself. The artist does not paint to be better than another artist. They paint because something within them demands color. The singer does not sing to be louder than another voice. They sing because silence cannot hold what they feel. The same is true for you, whatever it is that calls to you. Whether it is to teach, to heal, to lead, to nurture, or to simply live with kindness, that calling is your art. And when you answer it, you restore the rhythm that comparison once disrupted. There is a profound freedom in honoring your own pace. The world may move quickly, but your spirit knows when to pause. Do not rush to meet someone else's timeline. Their season is not your season. Some flowers bloom early in spring, others wait until late summer, yet all reach toward the same sun. Trust that your time will come, not because you demand it, but because it is written into your rhythm. When you stop racing and start listening, life begins to flow instead of fracture. You begin to hear the steady beat of your own drum again, a rhythm that was never lost, only muted beneath the noise of comparison. Every time you choose authenticity over imitation, your poem gains another layer of truth. Your verse is yours alone. It carries the weight of your experiences, the flavor of your memories, the echo of every choice you've ever made. No one else could write it even if they tried. You owe it to yourself to protect that voice, to nurture it, to listen to it, to let it evolve without judgment. There will always be those who seem farther along, louder, brighter. But remember, stars do not compete for light, they simply shine. In the same way, your brilliance does not dim another's, and theirs does not diminish yours. You were never meant to be a reflection. You were meant to be a revelation. And when you finally stop measuring yourself against others, you make room for your true self to emerge. In that moment, creation returns to its rightful place, not as a contest, but as communion. The silence that comparison once imposed dissolves, and the music of your authentic life begins again. Purpose is not always loud. Quiet strength and gentle truth can still change the world. We live in a world that often mistakes noise for significance. It celebrates the grand gestures, the thunderous voices, the public victories. It teaches us that to matter, we must be seen, that our worth is measured in applause and acknowledgement. Yet, there is another kind of purpose, quieter but no less powerful. It lives not in the spotlight, but in the steady glow of sincerity. It moves without announcement, transforms without recognition. This kind of purpose does not demand attention. It simply exists, steadfast and sure, like a candle that keeps burning even after everyone has left the room. It is the purpose that whispers instead of shouts, and yet somehow its echo lasts the longest. Quiet purpose does not seek to impress, it seeks to serve. It is the teacher who stays after class to help a struggling student find confidence. It is the nurse who holds a trembling hand in the darkness of a hospital room. It is the parent who rises before dawn to provide for a family, unseen but unwavering. It is the friend who listens when words fail, the artist who creates not for fame but for healing. These are the ones who shape the world from beneath its surface, who change the course of another's life without needing to claim credit. Their work does not fill headlines, but it fills hearts. Their names may never be remembered in history books, but their kindness ripples through generations. Quiet purpose teaches us that greatness is not measured in volume, but in depth. There is strength in stillness, not the stillness of inaction, but of rootedness. The tree does not shout as it grows, it deepens its roots in silence. The ocean does not announce its tides, yet it moves the moon. True strength is not always visible. It is often the unseen endurance that keeps a soul steady through chaos. The person who chooses peace instead of retaliation, who forgives when resentment would be easier, who loves even after loss. These are acts of courage greater than any battle cry. Quiet strength is not passive, it is purposeful. It is the power to remain gentle in a world that can be cruel, to keep believing in goodness, even when it feels forgotten. It is the calm voice that steadies others when storms rage. It does not boast, but it sustains. Gentle truth, too, holds transformative power. The world often equates truth with confrontation, with the loud declaration of what is right. But truth can also arrive as a whisper, a soft realization that awakens without wounding. Sometimes it is spoken in silence, in the example of integrity, in the small act of kindness that reveals what love truly means. Gentle truth does not need to conquer, it simply illuminates. It is the kind of truth that reminds rather than rebukes, that invites rather than imposes. When spoken with humility, truth becomes healing instead of harm. It becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. And in that way, it changes the world not through force, but through grace. Those who live quietly with purpose often go unnoticed, but they are the backbone of humanity. They are the steady hands that hold the fragile threads of life together. Their work might not sparkle, but it endures. While the loud voices come and go with the wind of trends, the gentle ones remain, grounding us in what truly matters. Their influence cannot be measured by likes or trophies. It is measured by the lives they touch and the peace they leave behind. The world may not always see them, but it feels them. In every act of compassion, in every moment of kindness that ripples outward unseen. True purpose, after all, is not about being remembered. It is about making life better even if no one knows your name. And so, purpose is not always found on stages or in shouts of victory. Sometimes it lives in quiet rooms, in unseen acts, in steady hearts that keep beating when the world grows weary. It is the strength to keep showing up when no one is watching. It is the courage to do what is right without needing to be praised. It is the devotion to create, to nurture, to heal, to hope, even when recognition never comes. The gentle truths of such a life are the foundation of everything that lasts. For in the end, it is not the loudest voices that shape the world, but the most consistent hearts. The world turns not by the roar of greatness, but by the quiet rhythm of those who live with love, day after day, without ever asking to be seen. Living fully is the act of becoming. To live your truth boldly is to give your poem to the universe. To live fully is not merely to exist, but to awaken, to step into each day with a sense of sacred purpose, to feel the weight and wonder of being alive. Too many hearts move through the world half asleep, breathing but not feeling, walking but not witnessing the miracle of their own existence. To live fully is to inhabit your story, to participate in your own unfolding. It is to understand that your life is not something happening to you, but something happening through you. Every breath you take, every decision you make, every moment you embrace or resist, these are the brushstrokes painting your poem into being. Life does not ask for perfection, it asks for presence. And when you show up fully, with all that you are and all that you are still becoming, You give life permission to meet you halfway. Becoming is not a destination. It is a continual evolution, a dance between who you were, who you are, and who you are still daring to be. Living fully means allowing yourself to change, to stretch, to outgrow the smallness you once mistook for safety. Too often, we cling to old versions of ourselves out of fear. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of the unknown. But you cannot become the poem you were meant to be while holding on to the draft you have already outgrown. Growth is uncomfortable, yes, but it is also sacred. It is the universe's way of refining you, line by line, word by word, experience by experience. Living fully means trusting that you are a work in progress, and that progress, in all its messy glory, is enough. To live your truth boldly is to live without masks. It is to walk through the world as your whole, unedited self, even when the world prefers a quieter version of you. It means speaking your truth when silence would be easier, following your calling when the path is uncertain, and loving yourself enough to stop apologizing for being real. Boldness is not arrogance. It is authenticity in motion. It is the decision to honor your own voice, even when it trembles. When you live your truth, you give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes contagious. You become a mirror reflecting what freedom looks like. Not a loud, boastful freedom, but the quiet liberation that comes from alignment between soul and action. Living boldly is not about being fearless. It is about acting with love even in the presence of fear. Every life, when lived fully, becomes an offering, a poem given to the universe. It is not about fame or recognition, but contribution. When you love deeply, when you create with honesty, when you show compassion to the unseen and faith to the unseen future, you are writing stanzas that ripple through existence. The universe expands through acts of authenticity. Every kind word, every brave decision, every healed wound adds a new verse to the collective poem of humanity. You may never see the full impact of your living, but it echoes nonetheless. Somewhere, someone is breathing easier because you dared to be kind. Somewhere, a stranger finds hope because you refuse to give up. Living fully means understanding that you are both author and offering, that your story is not just yours, but a gift to the world. To live fully is also to live presently, to meet each moment as it is, not as you wish it to be. We spend so much of our lives reaching forward or looking back, measuring ourselves by moments that have passed or dreams yet to come. But life in its purest form only exists in the now. The past has already been written. The future is a page still blank. This moment, this heartbeat, this breath, is the only ink that is real. To live fully is to recognize that truth and respond to it with reverence. It is to taste your coffee as if it were the first time, to feel the sun as if it were a blessing, to look at another human being and truly see them. When you live this way, life stops being something to survive and becomes something to savor. The poem you are becomes not a rush toward an ending, but a celebration of every unfolding line. And perhaps, to live fully is to love fearlessly, to let your heart remain open even after it has been broken, to keep choosing connection over protection, hope over hesitation. Living fully means allowing life to touch you, to shape you, to move through you. It means crying when it hurts and laughing when it heals. It means forgiving, not because it's easy, but because holding on weighs too much for a soul meant to fly. To live fully is to trust that everything you experience, joy, pain, beauty, loss, is part of your sacred becoming. You are not meant to resist the world, but to participate in it, to let it teach you, to let it write you. For each time you show up honestly and love completely, you give your poem to the universe, not as something finished, but as something gloriously alive. And so, my friend, after all the searching, all the stumbling, all the pages you have turned and rewritten, you stand here, still becoming. You have lived through storms that tried to blur your words, through nights that silenced your rhythm, through seasons that made you doubt the sound of your own voice. But here you are, breathing, believing, becoming. The poem within you never stopped writing itself, even when you thought the ink had run dry. It was there in your laughter and in your tears, in your breaking and in your healing. It was there all along, waiting for you to listen, to remember, to rise. You are not unfinished because you are flawed. You are unfinished because you are alive. Each day gives you another line, another chance to rewrite, to refine, to rediscover. The beauty of your poem lies not in its perfection, but in its persistence, in the way it keeps unfolding no matter how many times the world tries to close the book. Do not be afraid of the edits. They are proof that you are growing. Do not fear the pauses. They are part of your rhythm. Every breath you take, every choice you make, every act of courage adds to the masterpiece that is your becoming. The world may never fully understand the poem that is you, and that is all right. Not every verse is meant to be explained. Some are meant to be felt. What matters is not that they comprehend it, but that you live it. Let your life speak the truth of your soul. Let your love be your refrain, your kindness be your rhyme, your resilience be the music that carries you through. Walk as though your footsteps are verses, soft but strong, humble but certain, and wherever you go, may your presence remind others that their own poems are still being written too. When the world grows noisy, return to your rhythm. When the world grows cruel, return to your compassion. When the world grows dark, return to your light. You are the keeper of your own flame, the author of your own becoming. Do not wait for permission to shine. You were born luminous. You were born necessary. You were born to give your words, your work, your wonder to this world, not as a whisper of what could have been, but as a song of what already is. So rise and live your poem out loud. Live it in the way you love, in the way you forgive, in the way you dream even when dreaming hurts. Live it in laughter, in gratitude, in grace. Because your life is not a rough draft, it is a living art, divine, defiant, and beautiful beyond measure. And when your days are done, may the universe look upon your story and smile, for it will know that you did not merely survive this world. You became the poem you were born to be.